Hello, my name is Simon. So this is going to be a different kind of video, not really any mixing this time. I wanted to just talk a little bit about myself actually, which I don't normally do too much, and just explain a little bit about me, where I came from, and my vision for this new venture of mine called Mixing Mastermind. I have to set a timer on my phone for around about 30 minutes because my camera just stops recording after that point. So I'm going to try and just keep going. I don't want to edit this video into perfection too much. It's just going to be a bit of me talking and explaining a few things. And that's basically going to be it. So if that doesn't sound really interesting, then just don't watch it, I guess. But here we go. So I'm 42 years old. I live in Basel, Switzerland right now. I was born in Zimbabwe. Well, actually, it was called Rhodesia, which is in Africa. My mum was born there, and my dad, well, he's from England, but met my mum there. My brother and me were born there, and very soon after, it became, it was given back by the English government to the African people. They left, which I think was a very sensible idea considering what happened to it after that, which is quite a shame. But so we moved to Newcastle. So that's where my dad was from, and that's where we settled. That's really my earliest memories. I don't remember being in Africa. I was way too young, only a couple of years old when we left. So that's where I went to school. That's where well, that's kind of my home in a way. That's where I was brought up, and my earliest memories and my first friends I ever made were there. And it's yeah, it's a very important place to me. I still support the football team, which is very unfortunate right now. But yeah, I think we'll try and keep this on topic with music and various things. So I first started playing the piano, I guess I was probably around 9 or 10. I can't really remember, but I was playing the piano and I did quite a few of the grades and a lot of the theory stuff. And I actually enjoyed it, but I didn't really have a very good teacher. She wasn't really the right teacher for me. She was quite kind of old school, old fashioned. And, you know, it was a bit kind of boring, I suppose. Just, it wasn't really interesting, which is a shame. And one regret I really do have is that I didn't really keep playing the piano after that. I mean, I still can play the piano a little bit. I know I learned the notes and, you know, some of the theory, and I know where the notes are, but I don't have any songs I can play, or haven't practiced anything for a while. But my older brother had an electric guitar, which he was playing, and well, I guess he wasn't really playing it, and that's kind of the point. So this guitar was just sitting around, and one day I decided I'll pick it up and have a play and see what this thing is, and plugged it into the amp and just turned this guitar on and hit some strings, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do instead. So my parents gave me some guitar lessons from a really great guitar teacher in Newcastle. Really cool guy, one of my heroes when I was just a teenager. Really awesome. Yeah, he was a very technical guitar player. He got me into a lot of the kind of Steve Vai and Satriani and Malmsteen and Zakk Wylde and people like that. So I sort of wasn't really that clued up on that stuff really at the time, and I've since kind of discovered that that's not really my thing at all, actually. But it was definitely good to learn that stuff. You know, Dream Theater, those kinds of bands. They're, you know, very very good musicians, all of them, and the amount of hours it needed to get as good as they are, that's a lot. You know, it's a lot of work. And I kind of started to get into music on my own, really, I guess, when I was in my early teens. That was part of it. And I remember some friends of mine at school, they had these Iron Maiden vinyls. They were like picture discs with like the amazing artwork on the front, and I was just like, these are amazing. And So we played some of these records, and I was like, okay, yeah. So this was my first introduction to like heavy music, and I was kind of hooked from there. Really, I got into bands like Metallica, of course, and Megadeth, and probably like Slayer was the most like heaviest stuff I got into when I was like really a teenager. I wasn't really into anything too much more crazy than that. So yeah, Newcastle, I mean, it's a cold place. It's not really quite a difference from Africa, I guess. And my mum wasn't really happy there, let's say. So they were looking at other options for us to move to. At the time, I was at school. I was like 13, 14, and well, honestly, I didn't have a great time at school. I struggled a bit with, I was bullied at school. I was called names. I was picked on. I'm quite tall, I'm over 6 foot tall, but at school I was also tall, and I had glasses, and I was just gangly and just really uncoordinated. I mean, I was quite good at sports. I was a very fast runner, and obviously I could play basketball. People picked me for the basketball team, and I played table tennis, and football, of course, but yeah, it was a difficult time. I didn't really stand up for myself, and I got kind of picked on, and it was pretty rough. And I mean, I had some good friends, some friends that didn't go to my school, and a few that did. And yeah, there was one time where I was going on a school trip, and this is actually a good story. So I was going on a school trip, and I was actually on a different, because our year was so big that they split the year into different sections to go on these school trips. And I went on a school trip with a different group of classes than my own. And on the bus, on the way up to this museum in Newcastle, I met this girl, and we, on the way back, we were talking the whole time, and on the way back we sat together, and she was my first ever girlfriend in the end. And I don't know if you can remember the first person you ever fell in love with, but it's pretty extreme, let's say. So yeah, that was a thing. But after a few months, I was at home one time, and my parents told us that they decided that we're going to move to sunny New Zealand. So we're off to the opposite side of the world now. And needless to say, I was not a very happy teenager at this prospect, leaving the only place that I knew, my friends, and this girl, obviously. And some things went on with this girl and her parents and my parents, and things got a bit messy, and I was getting into fights at school a little bit, and other things that I shouldn't have been doing when I was a teenager. Things weren't great with my parents and me, and this didn't really help. So but I couldn't really stay. I had no option to just stay. I was only 14. So off we went to New Zealand, to the way out in the countryside, way out of Auckland, and that's where our new home was. And so yeah, things kind of progressively got worse at home. I ended up basically going to school for a little bit there. I didn't really pass anything. I dropped out of school when I was like 16, I think. No, 17, I think. And no, 16. I dropped out of school, and without any qualifications whatsoever, and decided that, well, there was only one thing that I was quite good at, and it wasn't really music. I had actually no real concept of music being a kind of career or a job at this point. So I was good at computers. My dad had got into IT stuff. He changed careers at some point, and I learned quite a lot from him. He used to bring home his laptops, and I would always play around with them. And it was before even Windows was a thing. It was like MS-DOS, and then Windows was around. And so like really from the very beginning of like the whole PC explosion. And so I learned quite a lot of stuff from playing around myself, and that was the only thing that I was good at, really. So I got into a college, and I just studied for a year, barely passed a very, very basic course because I was hardly ever there and just messing around with my friends and playing video games instead. And then there was another half a year, or it was a 3-year course, but I only managed another half a year, I think. I can't quite remember. Yeah. Basically, I ended up getting a job. In fact, my dad got me a job at where he was working, so I was doing some basic IT stuff and helping out with fixing some hardware and getting things repaired and various things. So yeah, that was good. And a lot of my friends, well, in fact, one good friend of mine in New Zealand was moving to London, and so about this time I moved around a little bit. It was pretty crazy, actually, like my experience in Auckland. I met some really, really good people there, and yeah, it was really, I had to grow up quite fast. I mean, I was living on my own at 17. I mean, not on my own, but like I'd moved out of home, and I had to like figure out all this stuff. Like now I have to buy food on my own and toilet paper and various things I never even thought about, and deal with relationships and life and all kinds of stuff. So it was pretty intense, and you know, yeah, I grew up quickly, let's say that. But it was good fun. Auckland is, yeah, it was never really my home. I didn't really feel that settled there. I still wouldn't say it is now. I lived there for about 6 years, and a friend of mine went to London, and another friend of mine went to London. So I was like, okay, maybe I should do that, you know, get out of Auckland. And I managed to do it with a little help from a friend of mine who we managed to get some money together, and I got a flight to London. This was like early 2000s, I think 99, I think it was. In fact, I was around 20 years old. So yeah, then that whole adventure started. I was going to, yeah, at this point, like I wasn't really playing guitar much. You know, I brought my guitar with me, but it just sat around, and I played it a little bit here and there. I eventually managed to get some work doing IT stuff in London, and I was working for a lot of really good companies, really big financial institutes there, and was just like, okay, this is cool. I was earning lots of money, had nice places to live. I could go to like concerts all the time. It was really a time in my life where I was seeing a lot of live music. Really, there was so much going on in London, early 2000s. I was seeing all kinds of bands that I really liked. I mean, I was not really that into like metal too much, but like a little bit, but I was following like bands like Radiohead around everywhere. And yeah, lots of, I mean, there was just so much, you know, there was so much going on. I was very influenced by the 90s kind of new metal stuff, and the kind of more like alt rock or alt metal. I don't know, that kind of vibe I was quite into, like early Korn albums and Marilyn Manson and Tool. Obviously, Tool was like my favorite band ever. So yeah, stuff like that, you know. It was heavy, but it wasn't like extreme metal also, and like rock and indie and whatever was around. And there was just tons of gigs. I have still a box of like all the ticket stubs from the concerts I went to, and there is just so many of them. So it's awesome to look through all that stuff and see all those memories. Yeah. So from there, I was just working for a long time, and you know, I had a good career. You know, that was it. I was like, okay, this is what I do now. And I played a little bit of music, but it wasn't really, it was more like for enjoyment. I wasn't really serious about it. And at some point I decided like, yeah, it would be cool to play in a band. Like I never did that really. So I got myself a nice guitar and started to practice a little bit more. And then, yeah, let's see who I can find. I can play some music with, and managed to find some people. We got together and wrote a few songs, and I think I played my first ever concert my first ever gig when I was like 30 years old. I think it was my birthday actually, at our rehearsal room, if I remember rightly. Yeah, so that was cool. I mean, I feel like from there onwards, it things changed for me actually, and I got more and more into music, and I was quite serious about playing guitar at that point. And then so I started to like try and record some things or do some songwriting myself, for the bands and everything. And that's when I started to get into like recording for the first time. My friend got me into Cubase and showed me how to work that a little bit, and had a little small interface so I could record some things. So first it was recording, and then it was like mixing and getting the sounds right. And then it was all of a sudden, it was just like, that was something that I like, wow, it really clicked for me. Like really, not that I was good at it, but like I just loved it straight away. I really enjoyed like playing around with the sounds and just listening to finished songs and the albums that I listened to all the time, and got really intrigued about how that really happened. Like now that I could see, like I can record a few things, and like, so how do I make this basic thing into like this amazing sounding album that I hear, that I have, that I own. So that became really an obsession of mine, and I stopped. I kept playing guitar, and I got into another band, and we had a lot of fun, and they're still really good friends of mine. And I think, but I got more and more into the mixing, the production side of things. So yeah, I just wanted to learn as much as I could, really. And at that point, this was like about 10 years ago, I suppose, so like 2010 roughly. And there was hardly anything available to learn, really. Like there was not really much on the internet, or like courses or training, or kind of, there wasn't really. I could buy some DVDs, which had some training things on, or whatever, things like that. They were kind of weird and not really very relevant to what I was doing. So it was quite tough to learn. I got a job at a studio. In fact, I moved to a house and they had a studio downstairs, and the guy was let me use the studio, and I would work there, and I was recording a lot of like London gangster hip hop crews that have just come out of prison and stuff, and that was interesting. I learned some interesting things from them, and some production things, and I did some metal stuff as well. Like a few bands came in and we recorded, and started to do some work with my band as well. And yeah, I just tried to learn what I could from the people around, and whatever resources I could get my hands on. But it was tricky. It was hard to find good information at that point. So yeah, then kind of randomly I met a girl when I was it's a bit of a strange story, because I went to a festival in London. It was like in a park, like in central London, and just like a day festival. You go there for the day, and it was 2 days in a row. But I was just there just randomly because I got a cheap ticket somehow, and met a girl there, and she was from Switzerland. And so we hooked up, and we stayed in contact. And for a year I was traveling to Basel, and she would come to London, and we were doing this thing. And at a certain point, I was the band I was in had excuse me, I'm gonna take just a drink of water. So yeah, the band I was in, it kind of started to split up. Some people had left, and it was just not going that great at that point. So I decided to leave the band, and then I just decided to leave London actually, and just come to Switzerland. So it seems sadly that my memory card ran out right in the middle of that. So apologies, and I have to I have to cut this and just try and keep going somehow. I've basically been talking for about another 15 minutes past this point, so I guess let's try and do that all over again. Bummer. So I was talking about leaving London, and yeah, as I said, the band I was in started to fall apart a little bit, and I decided I'm gonna just move to Basel because, yeah, I wanted to be with my girlfriend, and I was kind of a bit sick of London and I just needed a bit of a change. So it was kind of perfect, and thought, well, just try something new. So off I went to sunny Liestal, which is just outside of Basel, actually, in the kind of countryside almost. A bit of a culture shock from London to there, but my ex-girlfriend's dad had a big old house kind of thing that it wasn't being used, and he said I could stay there for a few months. So yeah, I got a job pretty much straight away working at Credit Suisse, so still doing IT work, and just kind of tried to like get used to everything, really, just try and make some new friends and try and get used to the culture and try and learn a little bit of the new language and try and, just survive. And, slowly that got easier, and I met some people. I met a lot of people in the music industry and the music scene here, and people in bands here. It's quite a small scene, but it's actually it's actually a really good one. Really interesting music is happening in Basel, I think, compared to other places. So yeah, basically I was living in this big old house, like on this hill. It was pretty cool, actually. I had like 3 massive rooms, and I decided like I'm gonna try and make a recording studio here. There was definitely enough space. It wasn't really the ideal layout for it, but I'll just see what I can make. So with the money I was making from my nice IT job, I was buying panels and getting the room kitted out and buying gear and some compressors and microphones and various things. And so that was like slowly building up, and I was able to just play around with some things and do a little bit of recording here and there. And well, at a certain point, I think after about 2 or 3 years, I managed to build this studio, but I was still working full time in my IT job and traveling 3 hours a day to get there and back. So I decided like I have to make a choice here, really. Either I get rid of all this gear and keep doing what I'm doing, or I quit my job and do the studio thing. So I decided to quit my job and just thought I'd just go for it, just see what happens. I'd know not much of a plan, or it wasn't the most well thought through thing I've ever done in my life, to be honest. But it wasn't like I had like loads and loads of clients already or lots of work already lined up. I just did it, and with a little bit of money I'd saved, tried to like survive that. So yeah, it was, I managed to get some bands in there, some friends, and got to do some recording, and try to get used to the process and learn how I want to record and set things up. And really it was just a lot of trial and error, trying to get good at doing the recording side of things and the mixing as well. It was really a case of just recording something, thinking everything sounds cool, and get to the mixing part and then realizing like maybe this is not so great, so like next time try and do that better. So then the next time try and do that better, and then see what else comes up, and slowly you can like this is something I need to do, this is something I need to do. You build up that kind of repertoire of things that you can just get good sounds with, and then things get better. Really, it's still a process, and I'm still learning a lot, but slowly it's improved. And at this time, I had met some guys in this band, and they asked me to do some like live sound mixing for one concert. So having never done that before, I decided to like give that a go. So just mixed their show. I don't know how well it went. I think it was fine, but no disasters, I think. But then soon after, the guitar player left in the band, and they asked me to, like, they were like, "Hey, you play guitar, right? So like, yeah, can you just learn some songs for this gig? And like, we have this festival thing coming up. It would be awesome, if you can learn the songs and play the show for us just to help out." I was like, okay. So I learned the songs, and we were rehearsing, and played the show, and it was good fun. And I was like, okay, let's do some more then. Let's keep playing some shows. They just released an album at this point, so they were trying to just play as many shows and promote that as much as possible. And yeah, this was a really, really cool experience actually, and a completely different experience from playing in a band in London, compared to like the gigs I was getting here in Switzerland, where there was bands that were like similar, and the nights were like special nights that were put together for like the right kind of band, so the audiences would like the other bands, and they would give you food, and they would give you money, they would give you drinks, they would like really look after you. And there's basically the complete opposite of what happens in London, and that really just destroyed my it kind of destroyed my soul really a little bit. Just playing shows in London where you sometimes have to even pay to play there, and no one shows up because there's so many other things to do, and like the bands that you play with are just like not at all similar to what you play, so the audiences will never like your music, or I don't know. The whole thing was just a joke really. So this was like a really refreshing change to that whole situation. And yeah, we got to go on tour for like 10-11 days, played all these shows in Eastern Europe and like Czech Republic and Slovenia and all kinds of places like that, and it was probably one of the best experiences in my life. I just had such a good time doing that. It was amazing. I mean, I was still working full-time at this point, in IT actually, and but to get to go on tour, and we got to go play some festivals, some pretty big festivals, and to play in front of like a couple of thousand people was just an amazing experience. But yeah, I suppose all good things must come to an end, and I guess that's probably not a topic for another video, but it's something I can't really, it'll take too long to explain that whole situation right now. So anyways, yeah, I quit my job at some point, and that was about 6 years ago, so I think around about 2016 or so. I quit my job at Credit Suisse and was like, okay, do the studio thing. And I haven't really played guitar much since then. So the thing with guitar and me, I have to say, is like I tried really hard to get good at it. I can, if someone shows me how to play something, I can pick it up quite quickly and I can play songs. But to be really creative, to be like technically good, to play fast and all that stuff, I just couldn't get it. I tried hard, I practiced at all these scales, I had all this stuff from my old guitar teacher. It never really clicked for me. I just couldn't practice for hours and hours like some people could. It was just way too boring. I wasn't that into it. I mean, I like it. It's certainly been fun. I hope I can get to play guitar again a little bit in the future, but yeah, I got more into the production and mixing stuff. That was really where my passion was. I had a lot more. I could spend hours and hours and hours doing that, but I couldn't do that with guitar. It was the repetition of just trying to play legato and sweep picking and stuff. Just, it wasn't really for me. So yeah, I got into doing some recording. I got some bands in, and after some cool stuff happened there for sure. I learned a lot. Really, I learned a lot in that time that I was there. It was about 3 or 4 years, I guess, but I was there until I had to leave. There was lots of like quite difficult times. I recorded an album with my old band, and this became a bit of a nightmare really. But the whole experience really taught me a whole lot, and I think at the end of it, I ended up a better mixer and a better producer and a better all kinds of things because of it. So take the positives out of these things, I guess, and try and find a way through. But I had to leave the studio, so the building got demolished, which was a huge shame. That was where I lived, and that was my studio. And I decided at that point I wasn't really that into living in Switzerland anymore, so I decided I'm gonna like just go. I wanted to go to Berlin actually. That was the plan. Or I ended up like I needed to get a job there, so I went to London first. But strangely, in some kind of like weird deja vu loop thing, just before I left Basel, I met another girl, and I was in London, and then she came to visit me, and I wasn't doing much in London. So she said, just come back and stay with me in Basel if you want. And I was like, okay. So I just moved back to Basel, really, and yeah, that was that, really. It just spontaneously happened. I wasn't really planning on staying, or there wasn't really any plan at all. I just thought I would just see what happened, and at some point I decided to stay and got a new studio finally, which is where we currently are right now. And yeah, I've been here for about 2 years now and got it all finally set up, and it took a long time, but it's really working pretty nicely. It's pretty small, like it's not as big as my old place, but it definitely works. I think if to get like full bands playing in here could be a bit tricky, but we managed like a little bit of that. So, but throughout this time, I've been, still able to do some work. Just I can do mixing, and yeah, even when I didn't have the studio, I could still do mixing, with my laptop and my headphones and things like that. So I just try and keep practicing, and as far as practicing goes, I guess throughout this whole time that I've been in Switzerland, the learning part of it has become a bit more accessible online. There's been a lot more ways to learn mixing and production online. I think the first thing I ended up getting into was the thing called Creative Live, which I'm pretty sure they're still around, and they have like classes that people will teach for like a couple of days for mixing and for editing and for various kind of music production stuff as well. And I think that was the first time I ever saw someone like explaining an entire mix, like how they mixed a song from start to finish, like a professional. That I'd never seen that before, so I was always just, figuring it out on my own. And yeah, that was like, so I was like watching this guy, and he was explaining every single plugin and every single EQ move, and he did on every single thing. And so I was writing it all down, thinking, this is great. This is how I'm going to do it now. And, of course, you go and try and apply that to your mixes, and it just doesn't quite really work out so well. And obviously what he's mixing and what you're mixing is two completely different things. So you need to like figure out the moves that work for you and on your material, and not, what he's doing. So yeah, that was a kind of a process of just like figuring out how to learn mixing in a way, I mean, and nowadays there is like millions of those things. Like you can literally just go on YouTube and just search for like mixing a metal song, and you'll get like probably like hundreds of hits from people just showing you how they're mixing their song, or how to like EQ a snare drum or something. There was literally like endless amounts of stuff on YouTube, and plenty of paid videos with like big producers and blah blah blah. That stuff's all really cool as well. I was following the Nail the Mix guys as well. I learned of them through the Creative Life courses they did, and got into the Nail the Mix kind of subscription thing. So they have like a famous mix engineer going through mixing a song every month, and you get to play around with the multi-tracks as well, and kind of see what they do at the end of the month and compare it to like your mix and stuff. So yeah, this was also really cool. Great to see some of my favorite mix engineers, like how they work and what their process is. And that was really cool, actually. I think I learned a lot from that. I think at the start I was also just writing down every single move that they were doing. I have a book somewhere with all my notes and stuff, and I realized quite quickly that as I said before, that's not really how you learn to mix. That's not gonna help you mix better in a way. Like it's all just dependent on what you're doing. So what I did discover from that was that eventually I could watch someone mixing, and then I could see what would be interesting, like what they did that I could use, perhaps like maybe a cool effect, or like a different technique for something, or yeah, more like techniques that you can just like, okay, I can maybe apply that to my mix in a way, like instead of just like the the individual EQ moves they use. You know, maybe some kind of saturation that they use on vocals, you could maybe just try out and see if it works, or things like that. You know, just more just ideas or concepts or like techniques instead of just like specific moves that they do. So I think that's the best way to approach learning, really, like from people online, is like not to copy exactly what they're doing, but just to try and get the idea of why they're doing it, and try and copy that instead of like the actual move itself. So yeah, I think that really taught me a lot. But at a certain point there, every time I was seeing someone else mixing a song, and then the next month was somebody else, and everyone has a different way of working, a different workflow, different way of structuring their mixes. And so trying to like copy one person, and the next month is like, okay, try and copy that one, and then okay, try and copy that one, and then I felt like I just wasn't getting anywhere, like just going around in circles a little bit with that. So I kind of had to stop it in the end. I just decided to stop that, and I'd learned enough, I think, and just really try to focus on what I wanted to do and like my workflow. And once I did that, I think things really improved for me a lot, just to really nail my workflow and, you know, refine it and just keep refining it, and just find a way that I like to mix, that I get good results from, and I can be like consistent with it, and not to be just changing every single month because some famous guy does it a different way that works for them, and, you know, just who does great mixes, and that's what you want to do ultimately. So it seems logical to just try and copy that, but I think it's good to try different things. And I think what I have now is really just a kind of combination of all these different ideas and things that I've tried all sort of into one thing. So it was definitely a process I think I had to go through to kind of get where I am right now. But yeah, I think it's good at some point to just try and figure it out on yourself, by yourself as well. Yeah, so that pretty much brings us up to where we are right now. I mean, you maybe you're wondering why I'm talking about all this kind of stuff, really. I mean, it's kind of some personal things, and okay, I'm talking about mixing in some kind of way, but ultimately I've got an idea for a business that I want to try and get off the ground. And so you've seen some of my videos perhaps on my channel, and I've got this idea for helping people with mixing in a way that I needed help when I was trying to learn, really. And that is really being able to help someone with what they're working on, basically. You know, just, I mean, one problem I had when I was learning was watching people mix something on a video, and then, like I said, trying to like apply it to yours, and it is not working, and then you're just kind of stuck. You know, you don't know what you're supposed to do then. You know, if it doesn't work, then you really need someone to help you with what you're doing. You know, so really my idea was like, well, maybe I could help some people to, you know, to work. Maybe I could help people with their mixes and like directly with what they're doing. And that's kind of the idea, really. I've written a course recently on EQing and some techniques, and I'll do some more courses that people can check out. So if they want to kind of get into that type of learning, then that will be available. But I want this to be more like a collaborative, like two-way thing, and not just me telling you like do this or do that, because that's just not how it works, really. That's just not how mixing or learning works in this kind of way. Yeah, I mean, I did this just recently. In fact, just on Saturday, I had a client who was interested in getting me to do some mastering for him. And so we decided to like get on a call together, and using this plugin that he can send the audio from his workstation, I can listen to it and hear what's his mixes, what's going on in his mix, and just maybe suggest a few things. And then, you know, he's bouncing out the stems, and I can do some mastering for him based on that. So that was really cool, and that's exactly what I would like to be able to do with more people, and just try and have like a community of people around that can benefit from that, really, that can learn from each other, and I can help directly with problems you might be facing in your mixes, and maybe you can learn a little bit from the training stuff as well that I do. And yeah, that's basically it. So I'm just trying to like talk a bit about myself, and because if I want to try and sell things to people, I want people to kind of know who I am, really, I suppose. I mean, I don't want to just be a random person. And so that time the battery on my camera died, so I had to restart this again. Luckily I didn't really lose too much this time. I think I was just trying to wrap things up, actually, and just explain a little bit why the hell I was just sitting here talking about all this stuff. Well, actually, it was kind of inspired by a video by Eric Valentine on his channel, which is really great. You should check it out. He's a very, very experienced engineer and mixer, and provides tons and tons of information, really, really long videos, but very in depth, and good breakdowns of songs and techniques. And but he's often just talked about things that are going on or things that have happened, and I kind of wanted to do the same, really, I suppose, just to, I mean, if I'm going to keep putting out courses and try and do training and interact with people, and I kind of want people to know who I am. I don't want to be just some random person that pops up and tries to sell you things and you don't know who it is. And I just want people to know that I'm a real person, and the things that I've been through and the experience that I've had, and I really hope that this gives you some kind of just insight into where I got to, like how I got to where I am right now, basically. It's been a journey, and I'll keep on that journey, and hopefully I can help some people along the way, basically. I mean, that's really it. So yeah, I really appreciate if you managed to watch this far through this video, this me just rambling on about my life and everything. What else do I need to say, really? Well, I think I'll probably just end this one here now. I think I managed to summarize roughly how I got to this point in my life, really. Yeah, so thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.